Hey. Divine Rise, blessed be. Good morning. Salutations. I'm sitting there pressing all these damn buttons. Salutations. Grand Rise. Great Rise. May everything in your day be the best aspects and then what you desire. I was thinking about it. I thought about it. You ever factory reset your phone? Or you ever get a new phone and you know where to go get the information that is needed to make your phone like your old phone? Follow me. You know when you get your new phone and when you immediately upload to your new phone your Google accounts, your Gmails, whether it's your iCloud, whatever it is, you upload everything else that served the purpose to your new phone. So it asked the question, it made me think the question was like, there's a difference between a factory reset and a quantum reset. And it made me really think about the main thing that stops us is it's not what we're losing in the emotional, the physical, and the material. It's the excuses that are within those rifts, or the emotional excuses for why we're not going to do something. Because it exposes us to accountability and responsibility. It exposes us to true vulnerability and truly becoming open. It exposes us to an entirely different setting. We gotta go through and learn all the settings all over again. So it's not about what we're losing emotionally or in the material or in the physical sense. It's really the excuse. I thought about it a lot of times when I was sitting in certain spaces, and a lot of the times when I was in certain mindsets or in certain spaces with myself, I realized that the real reason behind me doing something was the excuse that was behind it. If I held on to this same factor, I could take away me taking any accountability for myself. I could take away any responsibility to myself, because I had to understand that if I did a quantum reset of myself as opposed to that factory reset, because your factory reset to your phone, you simply just got to go back on Gmail and you just go pull up the old numbers, you pull up the old pictures, you pull up the old shit, and then you just keep going. But that quantum reset or that detoxing aspect, it forces you to sit there with it. It forces you to sit there with that shit. The shit that you brought into that space. Remember, everything in your space is reacting to you. You're not reacting to it. So it makes you think about your standards. It made me think about my standards. It made me assess my patterns. It made me really look at a lot of things with myself. It made me accept and love the points where other people came into my space and checked me. Whether or not how they checked me, if it was a condescending tone or whatever tone it was, didn't matter. It was the fact that I needed to be checked. I needed to be sat down. I needed to have something force my ass to sit the fuck down. I needed something I needed that trigger, because it forced me to really look at myself and what I was trying to hold on to. Why I always came to this same point. It made me really start taking that accountability for myself. Remember, this shit is not about right, wrong, left, right, up, down, your fault, not your. It ain't about that. It's about seeing it beyond the surface or that point where you can react to it. Because think about it, as long as I'm reacting to it, there's a pattern behind it. That means in every space that I went into, when I come to a certain point, if I didn't receive certain things in that space, then I can link it into everything else, every other point that I'm avoiding, every other lesson that I'm avoiding. This is the aspect of understanding those lessons, yeah. Yeah, you gotta use that internal search engine. You sitting here trying to do you're sitting here keep trying to do factory. I remember always trying to do factory resets to go back to my defaults or go back to my faults. Go back to my deflections, go back to my projections, go back to my comfort zone. I had to understand it for myself. I was used to everybody around me saying yes and needing me. So when anything came in my space that didn't need me, it triggered my insecurity. When anything came in my space and when it didn't need me, it triggered my insecurity. It triggered my doubt in my self-worth. It triggered my, nigga, I don't have a plan. I got patterns. So I'm sitting in that space with myself and I'm like, you know what? This isn't, but I had to really start looking at it. It was like, why do I keep ending up in this circle? Why do I keep ending up in this same space? What was different the last time? I had to go back and look at the jobs, everything that you got to look at, that internal work. I had to look at the amount of work that I actually was doing, the seriousness to the algorithm that I was in with it, and what the results that were based on that path. This is when I started realizing my money would be fucked up, not because of my job, not because of the relationship, friendship, my usual go-tos to blame on excuses. It's because I didn't have emotional intelligence. And financial literacy is the byproduct of my emotional intelligence. And earlier on when I was working with the spirits and the deities and working with my energy, I made a pact. I was like, yo, I'm ready for this. So now when I'm inside of that space, I'm in the space of creation. The spirits, I'm in the space of creation. That means everything that I'm creating is based on my understanding what's inside of my darkness. Understanding what emotional voids I filled and everything that's behind those darkness and them doors and them shadows. Because when I started doing the work, I noticed that I got the results were almost instantaneous. And it wasn't based on looking for what I wanted or what I thought I needed. It was the desired aspects of what I needed to work on. So if I talked about that last night. If I said I need $100, and then the first thing that come up in the mail is a $90 subscription to an East Bay magazine, as an example, an East Bay magazine, then do I really need that East Bay magazine? The only reason that I got that East Bay magazine is because I literally saw the Mace video and them niggas had leather vests or leather jerseys with their names on the front. So for a long time, I was like, oh, I can get my name on the front of my jersey. But I'm looking at where I'm at now. Does that fit where I'm at now? Does that pattern, that emotional, that infatuation fit now? If not, I don't need that subscription. That's my $100. That's my $100. Now when I'm going into spaces and I'm thinking in that way, even MJ went to the Wizards. Y'all remember MJ on the Wizards? That nigga in between seasons, that nigga was sitting there on the bike, on the exercise bike, dying. Now I'm looking at myself inside of that space of my mindset where I'm at now. I have to do a quantum reset. I have to search myself now. It's not what you're losing It's the excuses. Because once I started shedding all of the excuses, is this person's fault? Is this, and this? When I went through the process of thanking these people, to go back and thank my mother, thank my father, thank my uncles, thank my pops, thank these people that did things that were within their space, no matter what it was, to be able to thank them. And it was not based on the expectancy of them saying, you're welcome. That was the key. Just like when I go into the aspect and forgive them and not expecting them to accept it. Same frequency. Because once you do the apology, once you do the forgiveness, now you got to go through the process of the thanking. This shit don't stop. And the more stuff you got in that emotional debris that's going to come up, you're always going to have something to belong to. You're always going to have something outside of you to set your definition of yourself. Every single time. I had to really look at those aspects with myself. Even how I respond to things now is different. Because I'm not responding from the emotional standpoint of a bias or to deflect or to avoid. I accept the checks because it helps me balance. I accept those triggers because it helps me make some shit come down. This is when you got to understand the level that you're at. You're not doing this. You're not doing this for the clout. You ain't doing this the way you did everything else based on your trauma. It was your trauma that made you want to have yes men. Blessings, blessings. It was your traumas that made you want to stay in that space to where you had yeses and everybody had something from you. Look at your longest relationship and ask yourself why you were there. In the beginning of that relationship, the same thing that they accepted is something else that somebody else did not accept, but they came with a standard and a plan with it. That's the difference. The difference between me now when it comes to my work, now that I'm doing this, as opposed to me working that traditional 9-to-5 aspect, is because I had to live in others' conditions. I had to set myself to others' conditions. So the most I could do is factory reset myself when I got angry in the space. But that ownership, that LLC mentality, doing that healing work, it gives you your floor. It gives you that seat at the head of your table. You ain't using an identity to maintain it. You ain't trying to maintain a behavior. That behavior, trying to maintain that behavior, you got to keep the wound. You got to keep the wound open. You got to keep the emotional wound. You got to keep the neglect. You got to keep it open. That means you got to keep filling it. That means everything that you look at inside of your space, if it does not fit the pattern in your comfort zone, you're gonna put it in that hole. You're gonna put it into the corresponding wound. That made you feel neglected. That made you challenge your self-worth. That made you challenge your abandonment issues. That made you challenge that rejection. That made you challenge some shit. That forced you to pull some shit back. That forced you to look at yourself. I had to look like, nigga, this shit forcing me to look at myself. This shit is forcing me to look directly into the sun. I was used to looking into the moon and staying in this state of lunacy, staying in this state of paranoia, staying in the subconscious, staying safety tucked in my subconscious. I wasn't used to looking into the sun. Now I can't, nigga, I am the sun. This is when we're building these plans for yourself. It requires you shedding all of that. Because one of the things that I realized was after I removed one layer, so after I removed King, I got the Carlos. After I got the Carlos, I got the Charlie. After I got to Charlie, I got all the way back to my inner child. I got back to Dion. I got all the way back. So I noticed that every time I was triggered, I never went back to the original setting. I went to the one before that. So I was more and more sensitive. Remember, in this work, you becoming more and more sensitive. Uh-huh. Yeah. Don't stop the observation. Don't stop giving. Do not stop giving based on the terms of, oh my God, you now have a standard to what you give. I can observe. Now I'm observing. I don't have an expectancy. I'm going to give regardless. And I'm going to take accountability and responsibility for what happens inside the space. I'm not doing it to receive anything back or get anything, or to have all these, everybody around me says yes, because all that's doing is maintaining the behavior of my pattern or my identity, who I came into that space as. So as long as they saying yes, and they like, ooh, hell yeah, and I feel safe, I'm good, I ain't got to challenge myself, I ain't got to do no real work, I can just keep doing the same pattern. But when something comes into my space that challenges that, checks me, it forces me to go into that space of reflection. Every time I reflect on myself, I come out something different. At first, that shit used to be scary as shit. But now I reflect, come out something different. It was not, because there's a difference between awareness and self-awareness, reflection and self-reflection. You can reflect on a situation all day, but 9 times out of 10, you're reflecting on the external manifestation and not yourself. You can reflect on your job all day and pick up everything about it that's bad and it's no good and all that shit. But until you take that moment and go into self-reflection and understanding that job is a reflection of how you move and how you govern your energy, then you'll be able to be like, oh, that's why I get emotional and say, nigga, I don't need this job no more, fuck it. But then after I'm done being mad, I go to work the next day. What did I just tell myself in my space? I'm mad, I don't need my job, but I'm gonna go back to my job. So apparently what my job is doing is right. As long as they keep me in that mindset, I'm always gonna be able to deflect based into that. Now, since I'm in that space, now I'm gonna connect to other things that keep that going outside of that space. That's how you bond the shit. And then you cover it in we cover the addictions in the aspects of the interest, the things that we're avoiding, the things that we ain't dealing with. That's why after a certain amount of time, I used to look at the job and like, I really don't like these motherfuckers. Yeah. Don't be on cue. Stop. You laughing because everybody else laughed. The fuck? I'm one of those people that you should never have on speakerphone. And if something goes down that is not a funny situation, don't look at me because I'm going to laugh. I own that about myself. I'll explain to anybody that's willing to ask me and be open to my answer. But other than that, I'm only leaving it at the level where it's at. You're no longer going to be in that space with yourself in your mindset where you're trying to curve, because that's what the identity is. You're going to curve yourself to fit inside of a space. You are a destructive force by nature. If you don't leave a space and there's not, put it like this. Think about your job, relationship, whatever it may be. I can tell you about every job that I ever went to, every job that I've ever worked. Ever since I've left that job, it has not been the same. At first, people would tell me it's not the same when you aren't there because I needed that energy. Hell yeah, they needed me. But now, in me knowing it's not going to be the same, is because I'm aware of the space and what my energy did within the space. That energy goes away, so does all that stuff. it no longer exists. The way that I was programming, the way that I programmed that space, the program ceased to exist because that identity no longer exists. Remember, when you peeling back those layers, that's what you're doing. Every layer that you remove makes you more and more sensitive. Whether you had 7 nicknames, 2 nicknames, 3 nicknames, or whatever it was when you were called in certain spaces, regardless of whatever it was, the more you peel back, the more sensitive you become. Because you're stepping into your self-awareness. You're stepping into that quantum reset. You're stepping into that space more and more, and you'll continuously keep going through that loop until you've learned all of those lessons. This is what we're gonna get into on tomorrow when we get into that, when we get into the isolated reaction. You keep looking at the isolated reactions. You said you did one thing and you thought it only happened in one space. That shit rippled through everything. Remember, this is what we're afraid to lose, that ripple effect. If I start doing my healing, doing my internal work, I have to accept the ripple effect. The ripple effect is what's going to bring up all the other triggers and bring that sediment to the surface. Everything that need to be brought to the surface based on that strand of myself, that thread of my fates, the thread of the fates. Y'all, if you play God of War, you know, like the Sisters of Fate. That's what the Sisters of Fate's gonna pull up for me. They work for me. The Sisters of Fate work for me. Pull up that string, pull up this string, pull up this string. All right, cool. I'm gonna cut it. I don't want it. Cut it. Let's deal with it. That's what you're doing down here. The more you start taking this shit serious, and I mean this, the more you start taking this shit serious for yourself, and you really start going into those dark corridors and dealing with it, you'll start realizing how many emotional voids that you actually created inside of your space. As long as the trauma is still present, you will always try to fill emotional voids. You will always try to isolate the reactions. You will always try to be pro-life rather than becoming pro-death. I'm pro-death because I know what death is. I am death. I'm pro-death. I'm pro that transition. Are you willing to go that far? Are you willing to go that far with yourself? Are you willing to go past your comfort zones? Everything that made and kept you comfortable. Because I'm going to give you the key about you going outside of your comfort zone. Going outside of your comfort zone, there's no oxygen. There's no air outside of your comfort zone. I want you to really think about that. There's no air out there. That space is created based on your breath and your thoughts. So there's no breath present out there until you breathe life into it. And you'll know when you're still stuck in your comfort zone. A lot of times I used to realize when I was stuck in my comfort zone was based on the intellectual aspect, like, ooh, this person over here is just like me. And I would connect to them, and it wasn't a natural connection. I still had wounds present. Because I only did enough or the bare minimum. I only paid the minimum balance. It's time to stop paying that minimum balance. It's time to stop paying that minimum balance. I give them a little bit of time. I give them a little bit of this. And then even when you're not expecting something, you expecting something. That's something you got to be honest with yourself. You really was expecting some shit based on what you did. So that further that you know that your standard was not a standard. It was a condition. So that's why you sitting in that space and you ran game on whoever you ran game on at the job, in the relationship, whether it's your man, whether it's your, you unconsciously ran game. You did just enough shit to cater to a nigga. You did just enough shit to cater to that chick. But when you realize that at this point in time, that wasn't a nigga, That wasn't a nigga. That wasn't a regular chick. That was a shaman. That was a shaman energy. That was a bruja energy. That was a higher level energy. Now you sitting there like, oh, damn. The old shit don't work no more. Because it don't. Old thoughts, old patterns, old results. Look at your life right now. Has it worked? Or are you just keep creating through the emotional wound? Has it worked? So why do you keep doing it? Because it's comfort? Because you know how to react? You know exactly what to do inside of that space. But I'm letting you know now that shit's getting smaller and smaller. The shadows are getting more and more dense. This Leo energy is forcing all that shit, forcing that false pride to the surface. It's forcing those things to the surface. And you're like, oh shit, nigga, it is on me this time. It's always been on you. So what you gonna do with it? I desire you to be the fucking best. I desire you to be the fucking best. How do you see yourself, and what do you have to let go of to become that? Where do you see yourself? And now you must understand that how you want to see yourself, you got to let go of the shit that's stopping you from becoming that point. You can keep putting on the mask and all the other shit, rent a car, love a hip hop life, but the baseline is it's all about this internal work. The more I stay in my works and realize that my work is a privilege for myself, that I'm in that space, everything in my space is a privilege to help me learn that. Unconditionally. No conditions, no terms, no expectancy. I'm there 100%. I'm there, I'm with myself 100% or in that 70%. So every space that I go in, I'm in there always as I need to be. I'm exactly what I need to be in every single space, every single position. If I need to be the bad guy, I'm the bad guy. I need to be the good guy, I'll be the good guy. If I need to be the anti-hero, I'll be the anti-hero. No matter what I need to be inside of that position, that's what I'm gonna be. I'm gonna accept that privilege. I'm gonna accept that honor. That's how I become the best. That's how you become authentic. It's time to shed. I desire you to be the fucking best. This week, God Hour Podcast streaming now. It's out now. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The link is in my bio right now. The link is in this description for Isolated Reaction. Go ahead and get that description. Share, subscribe, like. Because pretty soon we're going to be changing the classes are coming soon. The healing retreat is coming soon. The first healing retreats and the classes are coming soon for more in-depth work. And if you are open, book that reading today. All my readings are mini consults, all the way up to the shadow work consultation. Let's just see where you at. You might not even need the therapy to that level. You might just need a little life coaching, them little 2 days out the month. It's cool. Or you might need a little in depth. You know you got some shit you want to work on and you need that space. That's what Lucifer's is for. I'm here to help you bear that light and bring it to the crossroads, bring it to the surface so you can do that work. But I desire you to be the best. I'll see y'all on Friday. I love you. We love us. Ashe.